Nader. I am very excited to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining us. I always like to start off my interviews with how are you? No one asks that these days.
I am wonderful. I really am
Amazing.
really happy right now. Thankfully.
So I know that you've just come back from DevConnect, ETH Amsterdam. Am I right?
Yeah, that's right.
And I have been reading your tweets. They sound very full of positive emotions. Can you tell me a little bit about, I guess, the last month or so, just traveling around the world, seeing builders do their thing? What has that been like?
Yeah, my last month has been really busy and exciting. I think that from March 13th maybe until like maybe like the end of last week, or maybe the beginning of this week, I had attended a lot more events than I typically do, and it just happened that they all kind of like fell back to back. So I've been in South America, I've been in Africa, I've been in Europe, and I've been in Asia, and I've been in the United States, and I've attended like tech events in all those places. And it's just really interesting and exciting to kind of see all of the different people that are building communities and all of the momentum that's starting to kind of pick up in this space, in the blockchain and Web3 space. And I think people are kind of really figuring out ways to organize communities. And I feel like it's still at the very early stages in a lot of these places, but a lot of people are getting organized with grants and figuring ways out to kind of find opportunities to land roles in this space. And ETH Amsterdam in particular was a really great event. It was probably like my favorite. I hate to say, I say this often because like I keep finding and going to better and better events, but like I would say for sure, it seems to be probably like my favorite Web3 or blockchain event that I've attended yet, because Amsterdam, the city, seemed to be suited really well for DevConnect, which was like not a single event. It was like 20 or 30 or 40 or 50, I don't know, like just a large number of these smaller events that were just happening all over the city. So one day you might go to one event and then the next day you go to a different one. And the nature of how Amsterdam is like, I guess, built, you can just like hop on a bike or walk and you're about 15 minutes max away from anything. So it's really easy to kind of like travel between places without having to get an Uber. And so that was one thing that was great. And then they had ETH Global, which was this huge hackathon, and it was extremely well organized, and a really great venue and a central part of the city. So those things were great. And then the quality of discussions and the types of people that showed up there, really great. So I love DAOs and I love NFTs and stuff, obviously, but I felt like at ETH Denver, there was no discussion about hardly anything other than that for the most part. I mean, obviously, like that's kind of a broad generalization, but I just felt like that was the narrative. Whereas at ETH Amsterdam, I felt like people were talking about a lot more meaningful and interesting projects and protocols and ideas along with those things that we've been talking about.
Right. Wow. That was an extremely comprehensive breakdown of all these conferences that you've been to. I'm kind of feeling FOMO. I love Amsterdam, and not just because they have the best, stroop waffles in the world, but I totally agree. The city is so full of energy, just the energy to want to create, to build, to start something, and just to facilitate people doing that stuff. So yeah, definitely next year, you're making me really want to make my goal to get there.
You should.
And
But
I
there's
don't know.
always a lot of great events, honestly. So you can't
Yeah,
make all of them. There's no way to go to all of them. You have to actually, we have to sometimes sit down and actually write some code or like do some work.
actually do some work. So I don't know how you do this back-to-back conference situation. You're basically like James Bond of Web3 crypto, like going from mission to mission. I know that the first time we met in Rio, coinciding with ETH Rio, but not at ETH Rio. And then since then, you've been to like 4 continents. So that's incredible. And I know that even amongst all of this, you've still been putting out content and you've still been engaging with the community, which is for me, that's just, yeah, that's the apex of a figure in the space doing his thing. So yeah, just want to take my hats off to you. So yeah, let's get into it. Like, who are you? Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into the Web3 space? Yeah, just for everyone watching who I'm sure has heard of you. I know that every single person who I mention your name to, they're like, please tell him that he changed my life. But anyways,
Wow,
tell me
cool.
tell me a little bit about, yeah, your background.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how far to go back, but like, I guess I can start by just saying I'm a self-taught developer, and like I'll omit everything that happened before that. So I was a self-taught developer that learned from free educational resources and also free events like meetups and stuff. And it so profoundly impacted my life that I just still like pinch myself based on the fact that I just can't believe that we have the opportunity to kind of learn and get involved in the tech industry and be paid and live the lifestyles that we live compared to pretty much everything else that I had ever done before. So service industry, retail, all these things, if you've ever worked in those spaces, you know that you often will get paid minimum wage and you're working like 40 hours a week and you often can't even pay your bills. But like in tech, you often see people making like 6 figures fairly quickly. And then, there's just tremendous upside. So the fact that a lot of the people that essentially created all this free content and put on these events, like enabled me to kind of get my foot in the door, that's always excited me, and it's never left my head. Like I just am always keeping in mind, like, oh, these people did this for me, and it was so like transformative. I want to kind of do that as well. And that's kind of been one of the things that I've consistently done, either as an engineer full time or as now I get to do this as my job as a developer advocate. So that's pretty cool. Being in DevRel, you get to kind of like create stuff and help people, and it's literally what you get paid to do. And that's pretty awesome. So that's kind of what I do now. But during the 10 years that I've been a developer, I've been a web developer, I've been a mobile developer, I've been working at AWS in cloud computing for a little over 3 years. And then while I was at AWS, I started getting a little bored with some of the work that we were doing. I was getting a little I just wasn't enjoying the corporate lifestyle. There were things that just didn't excite me about being involved in all these like processes with bureaucracy and red tape. And my peek into the Web3 space seemed exciting and really interesting, to the point where like I completely just pivoted what I wanted to work on within the course of probably, if I really wanted to kind of like time box it, like a 24-hour period of me like diving down the rabbit hole. Like I went from, I'm going to work at AWS or Coinbase or Goldman Sachs or one of these like corporate places, to I'm just gonna like join some random Web3 company that's only been around for a few months and make a shitload less money because it seems that interesting to me. Like there is like a 24-hour period in my life that I made that decision kind of, but it kind of really was me that led up to that, like a few days of me like researching different protocols and watching talks from Yaniv, who's the founder of Edge and Node and the Graph, and just saying, oh, okay, like this is what I want to do. What can I do to get in the space? And then I started researching, and I found the Graph was probably the only company that would hire me because I had zero blockchain experience, and I was thinking that because I had relevant GraphQL experience and they used GraphQL, that they would give me a shot, and they did. And I'm like forever thankful to them.
Wow, that is incredible. I'm sure they're very, very thankful that they got you at that time as well. You've just, yeah, all of the content you put out for devs, Web3, all of it's just, I think it's really set the standard for what yeah, like free web development resources should be. And so on this topic, I want to ask you, there's a quote I really, really like, and I see you doing this within the ecosystem, be the change that you want to see in the world. Yes, cliche, but very true.
Yeah.
I wanna ask, what is your, if you could put your life's or work's mission into one sentence, what would it like? What would it be?
I mean, there was like a talk that I saw about 6 years ago from this guy named, I think it's James Frost maybe, and it was called like Building Bridges or something like that. I think it was called Building Bridges, but like the whole entire like thesis of like his talk and his perception of how he approaches, I guess, his work and his life is like, um, other people are like laying the foundation for people like me to kind of like come out of obscurity and not have any formal education, and they've like gone out of their way to kind of essentially build a bridge for me to get to where they are without any expectation of repayment for that work. And ever since I saw that talk, like it kind of like just really was transformative in how I like approached everything at that point. And so I would say like building bridges, if I get an opportunity, then it's up to me to kind of like turn around and like make that 10x behind me. And then also maybe lead by example and say, hey, you got here, like make sure those people behind you like also get here. Um, so I think that's kind of like the general idea is that if I learn something and I think it's valuable, I'm going to go and like try to like teach other people. If I have an opportunity to like speak at an event, I'm going to recommend like 5 or 10 people that I know that I think would also be great, speakers, those sorts of things. And that's one way to look at it. And then another way is that like, I think that it's fun for people to get extremely wealthy. You want to become a millionaire and all that stuff. That's great. But I also feel that like working in tech, you have the opportunity to kind of make a lot of money, but also generate value for other people. And I think Web3 is especially that, like where you can actually generate value for a community and, have the opportunity to kind of like give a lot of that back to the community. So that's another reason why I kind of like Web3 is that, you can generate value. And I feel like the more value that you contribute, the more that you get back in return. It's like this snowball effect, like, the more things that you do good, the more good comes to you. And then you continue giving that back.
I agree. I agree that Web3 is like a petri dish for kindness and passing the value on, passing it on. I want to ask you, what is it about Web3, well, the Web3 community specifically, that you think enables this? Just for everyone watching, I suppose, who want to get a better understanding of how Web3 is not just a technological a movement or a revolution. It's a way of community growth, community nourishing. What are your thoughts on that? And as a DevRel or someone more inside the tech space, how do you see this panning out?
I think there's a whole bunch of things that kind of go into it. One of them is that just based on your involvement, your address is often unknown, and then you will get like retroactive funding. So I just got off the phone today with the protocol that was approaching me, and they were like, hey, we want to go and find all the people that have created content for our protocol, and we want to just airdrop them like money. And I was like, that's an amazing idea. You have this idea of retroactive airdrops, retroactive funding. It's kind of like a thesis of like a lot of the public goods narrative that you hear in Web3, and you see that happen all the time. I've had people, protocols that have reached out to me and like, wanted to retroactively pay me for the work that I've done. Sometimes you also have airdrops like Optimism. So if you interact with like a network like ENS, and you help essentially the network itself, because like the value of a lot of these networks is based on how many people are using it. So you as a user are providing value, and then therefore in return they give you like some value in return, which is like tokens. So that's the type of stuff that you often see. But I think with DAOs and stuff, I think we have a huge opportunity to kind of build valuable communities and valuable quote unquote companies. It's not even like considered a company, but that's the best like mental model a lot of people can kind of think of. And then based on your activity within that community, build value and then retain ownership, and then and then therefore you have value. So a good example of that is definitely Developer DAO. And there's a bunch of other ones out there, but because I'm part of Developer DAO and I was the creator of Developer DAO, I can say that we had initially started off with, like, we wanted to have the lowest barrier to entry possible. But you also have to take into consideration like Sybil resistance and Sybil attacks, and people gamifying, or not gamifying, but like people taking advantage of a digital asset and trying to kind of like increase the value and like make money off of it. And there's no perfect way to kind of like beat that. There's no perfect way to beat that, because everyone is going to try to game a system. And it's kind of like one of the interesting problems that you were trying to solve, I think, in Web3, and no one's literally solved it, right? Like even like WorldCoin is this new project that is trying to kind of create a unique identity for every person in the world. And like they're going as far as like scanning your eyeball, because like there is no way to actually figure out this person only is this attached to this address, and there are no other copies of this person, because you can programmatically spin up 1 million addresses in a few seconds with like a program. So like with Developer DAO, we made the tokens and entry completely free. You had to mint the token though, so therefore you needed some gas. So to get around that, so we assumed that there would be a large number of people that could probably just mint for $10 or $15, but we also knew that there were a lot of people who didn't have that $10 or $15 to begin with. So I spent like $10,000 just literally like minting and sending tokens. A lot of other members did that as well. Just trying to like create as many people, individuals that have skin in the game without having to spend any money with that, while it's still trying to counter like Sybil attack. We did have people mint like 70 tokens, like 1 or 2 people. You can't like, again, get away from all that happening. But therefore we built this network over the course of like 3 or 4 months slowly. And while this was happening, we had investors and like companies reaching out to us, like trying to just give us money, because what we were building was valuable. So we had investors that were within a few months trying to offer us money in exchange for portions of ownership that would have valued us up to $40 million, like fairly early on. And if we split up that 40 million divided by like the number of people that were there, they would have automatically had retained a lot of value there. But regardless of that, their token that they minted is worth probably 20 times whatever it was when they minted it, which is great. And then what I decided to do is, like, when we are expanding the entry to have our own governance token, and a lot of times what you see with like ENS, with optimism, you want these governance tokens and you immediately have like $1 billion valuations. So like we are launching a token, and I found out by keeping my eye on what all these like people in Web3 are like doing, is a lot of times you'll have people like, they're literally like creating a protocol, or they're creating a community, or they're creating something, and they sit and they spin out this narrative, oh, I'm here for the community, I'm here for public goods, I want to like give back and all this stuff. And then you actually pull back the curtain and you realize, oh, this person just made like $100 million or $200 million, and they're not giving that back, they're keeping it for themselves. So I kind of think that's kind of against really what we're going for here. Like, again, I don't think there's anything wrong with like getting wealthy, but I just think like anything beyond like 10 or 20 or $40 million, like if you're making that, that's fine, but don't sit there and try to like act like you're doing this for the good of the world when you're like making yourself like filthy rich. So I thought like a way to kind of like exemplify that is to just give away like my complete ownership in Developer DAO, and also like talk about it a little bit and hopefully throw shade on other people that are like not doing that. Because I have a full-time job and I make 6 figures a year, like, do I need another like $1 million? Like, no, I don't. That's one thing. But another thing is, like, if I created this purely for the benefit of the community and I take even a penny, people could say, oh, you created this for other like reasons, and they have a point. So like, why not just like not keep anything of it? So I hope that we see more people doing that those sorts of things. Like if you're making $500,000 a year, if you're making 100K, 200K, whatever, like, find an amount that's great for you. And if you're building something that you're trying to sell as a public good, and you're like getting rich of it, to me, that's like very hypocritical. So yeah.
Wow. I'm just trying to absorb all of that. I think that's extremely rare to find within the space. I know that the perception that people have of like blockchain, crypto, Web3 is maybe 90%. Everyone is trying to just rug pull everyone or like profit. It's just another way to frame like capitalism with tech. So I'm really happy that you shared your story, and I hope that people listening can learn from this, and it's evidence that there really are communities and people out there trying to better the culture of Web3. I'm quite bullish on that, with people like you, just I guess setting the example and leading by example. That it's going to work out. We're all gonna
Yeah,
we're
there's
all
a lot
gonna
of
make
great
it.
people out there, like other than me too. That's the great part. Like, I think we should just shine the light on all of those great people, and we should also shine the light on all the bad people. And because we
Yeah,
want to incentivize good behavior and disincentivize bad behavior. So if someone does something shady, like let's call them out. Yeah, for sure.
I respect that a lot. I also can't believe that you have all these things on your plate and you juggle so many communities. What is your secret to doing that?
I think it's just trying to kind of like find the most impactful thing that you can do minute by minute, and try to like just filter out everything else, and try to like have a very strict schedule where everything's on your calendar. Like if I want to
Mhm.
write some code for an hour, it's like on my calendar. If I want to, you know, eat something for lunch, it's on my calendar.
Wow,
And yeah, those sorts of things. Just try to be organized as possible, and like try to just do things at that scale.
I love that. Now, Neda, what do you do for fun, if I may ask? When you're not working, how do you enjoy? What do you do?
I I love to travel for fun. So anytime that me and my family can travel, and I also have a family, which is something I love to spend a way I spend a lot of my time, and I love spending my time. So on the weekends, me and my kids, like we go play baseball, or we just go hang out or whatever. We do stuff. I really like to eat, and I really like to cook. So I love cooking at home. I love going out to eat, and anything that has to do with food and traveling is what I like to do. And I actually like coding. So like, on the weekends, I'm often just like playing around with code and doing that. So I'm kind of
Nice.
boring.
No, I think that's perfect. It's a perfect balance. And so lastly, I like to end my interviews with a kind of fun question. So today I have a little, I guess, scenario. So in a parallel universe, Web3, we call this, yeah, the world is Web3. There's like a Narnia like portal, and you are the usher showing people into this world. So, what would you say to the person about to step into this world for the first time? For example, what would your top 3 recommendations be? Kind of like a travel, I guess, itinerary.
Hmm. I would say experiment as much as possible. Um, and then while you're experimenting, you're going to be meeting people. And I would say stay away from people that are focused on profit and talking about money like as the main focus. While I see like Web3 as a massive opportunity to actually become financially dependent, that's an amazing thing about this space actually. And I'm not trying to say that you shouldn't want to make a lot of money. I just feel like that is a result of just being involved in the right communities. It just comes naturally. But like you'll often find people that are just doing nothing but talking about trading, or they're talking about like their own token that they're trying to make worth a lot of money. So they do nothing but like talk about it. Like those sorts of conversations are just, I don't like them at all. Like, so I just feel like those are typically the toxic, not always, but often the toxic communities that you want to stay away from. Instead, focus on people that are like trying to do good in the world, people that are trying to build stuff, people that are trying to help people that are creating and experimenting and stuff, that are not only focused on like just becoming rich or whatever, because that's definitely the like get rich quick part, and all that stuff is like the negative part, I feel. But I do feel like there's a massive opportunity for people to get involved and make a very, very comfortable living, and I love that about the space. So those two things, and then the last thing I would say is like taking action seems to be a very high reward thing in Web3. So if you have an idea, if you're thinking of doing something, just do it and just see what happens. because most of the time people like have these ideas, but they don't ever follow through with them. And I think like in Web3, you get rewarded for experimentation. You're going to fail a lot of times, but all you need to have is like one thing that does well. Uh, and then that thing might carry you out through your entire rest of your career. You just never know.
Incredible. I would feel very safe if I was this person. And I think I have been in that position, so thank you. Lastly, thank you so much. So where can the listeners or audience members keep up to date with your work, projects you're involved in, or any wisdom that you share on your platforms?
Yeah, for sure. Twitter is like my number one go-to platform. So at Dabit3, DABIT, and the number 3. So that's where I would check out my thoughts and stuff. Another place that I'm going to go and plug is that we're going to be throwing an event in June. So June 2nd through 5th, Graph Day. It's a Web3 conference that we're throwing in San Francisco, where we've rented out the Palace of Fine Arts, which is like a really beautiful like location. We're going to be having dinners and like parties and really great speakers. We're going to have a hackathon, and a lot of people are coming from around the world. It's going to be a fun place, and we have scholarships available. So if you can't afford the ticket, if you can't afford travel, hotel, all that stuff, like we have a limited number of scholarships available. So throw your hat in the ring there if you'd like.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Nader.
Yeah,
Have
thank
a
you for having
good
me.
day.